All right, Brian Wheeler, Antonio Harvey, on this edition of Trailblazers Courtside. We are joined by the ace reporter digitally for Trailblazers.com. That would be Casey Holdahl. Case, good to have you on board. What did you do to? I was thinking as we were talking to David Vanderpool that it's been a while since we've had 2 days off in between games. This was like an embarrassment of riches to have such time in between covering games.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a bit surprised actually that the team had an off day yesterday, which was a nice surprise for me, considering that I assumed I was going to be out covering practice on Monday and Tuesday. But luckily, yeah, as you mentioned, one of the few instances since the beginning of the season where I had 2 days off at home, particularly. And yeah, I enjoyed a nice quiet day yesterday. I did a little bit of work, but not much. And then today I went out to practice, which is something we also haven't done a whole lot recently. Is covering practice at the facility in Tualatin. They really haven't had that many lately, being as how they were on the road for most of December, as you both know very well. So, yeah, nice little change of pace on both levels, both covering practice and actually getting to catch your breath here at home.
Well, what's interesting is we talk about the schedule that's the Blazers have had a lot. But what's most interesting to me is that after we come back from this upcoming road trip, 3 games on the road, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Washington, we get a day off, and then we've got Atlanta. But then it's 3 straight series of 2 days off between games. And that's a rarity in the NBA where you have a chance to practice and really get in some work this late in the season.
Yeah, I don't know if it was. I mean, the schedule this season is kind of generally, I feel like, the past couple 3 or 4 seasons. But definitely the December was more frenetic than I feel like it has in the past couple of seasons. And I don't know if that's got to do with the league trying to cut down on back-to-backs, even though, I mean, as you guys know, I think we only have 1 fewer back-to-back this year than we had last year. So we're not really getting the benefits of whatever decisions they made there. But it does seem like the schedule has been a bit uneven. But now that we got December out of the way, I'm here for it, because spending some time at home and covering some games at the Moda Center is definitely what I would prefer, especially after being on the road for so much. So it's nice to get those days off. We'll see how the guys do. It's been kind of interesting, though, that they have a little bit of a winning streak, then come home and lose those games, basically because they're playing better competition. And then they're going to go out on the road here, and they're probably going to be favored in probably their next 3 or 4 games, even though they're going to be on the road. So kind of showing that, it's just as much who you're playing as where you're playing in the NBA on a night-to-night basis.
So, Case, trying to peek into the mind of a top-flight reporter such as yourself, when you have a practice upcoming during the week, obviously we know when a game is being played, you're going to dedicate your efforts to covering what happens over the course of the game. But when you have practices and you still have material that you'd like to provide for ForwardCenter.net and Trailblazers.com, when do you come up with the concept of what you would like, what storyline you might like to basically tackle? Is it something that you go to practice and then it comes to you as you start watching the guys practice a little bit, or are you thinking before you get there? Do you already have a storyline in mind before you get to the practice facility on a particular day? How does it work in terms of what normally goes into the subject matter when you're trying to come up with things to talk about and write about on non-game days?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a little bit different for everyone, and there are definitely some people who show up at the practice facility with no idea what they're going to do that day, and it's pretty obvious sometimes. But typically what I do is, I just have a notebook that has a list of story ideas, and I just kind of cross them off as either I write them or as it kind of becomes apparent that that's not a good idea, or there's not really going to be any statistics or quotes or situations that are going to kind of forward that along. But a lot of times, I just try to keep a tally of kind of interesting, like say, either statistics or something you notice in a game or a trend that's maybe happened for 2 or 3 games. And then you kind of, you kind of set up your calendar a little bit and parse those out by what you think is going to be especially timely. And you go to practice and you try to kind of ask those questions. And it's different now, too, than it has been, or this season, last season, than seasons in the past, because, one, the way it works now at practice facilities is when you show up, you have to actually ask for which players you want to talk to that day. So it's not like you can just go in and say, well, I'll just kind of see what happens and hopefully I'll get to come up with a good story. I mean, basically, if you don't come with an idea on who you want to talk to, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. So, and we don't get to watch a ton of practice either. So it's not like I'm sitting there watching practice and something happens, and then I'm asking about that after the fact. I mean, but basically when we come into the gym now, the team is just shooting free throws. So you got to be on your game and kind of have some ideas already in the hopper. And a lot of times what happens, and this happens with me, and I know it happens with other people who cover the team, is someone else will ask a question about something, and then that'll kind of get you going about something maybe you were thinking of, or maybe you weren't thinking of, but you realize it's a good idea, and then kind of write that up. That's kind of what happened today. Both Mike Ritson and I were both asking about technical fouls today, and how the team has been shooting technical fouls, and how they decide who shoots those technical fouls. And that was something I was going to probably hold off for another day, but I knew that Mike was also probably going to write something about it, so I upped that to today, and that's what I wrote, even though I didn't go into practice today assuming that I was going to be writing about how the team is shooting technical fouls. But sometimes it happens, and you just get to work on it.
It's interesting, Tone, though. We've been talking about it because it's fascinating, and it was interesting to see CJ's comment about it, and even Damian discussing about the fact here are primetime free throw shooters going up shooting technicals, and how odd it is sometimes to be up there with nobody else along the foul line. It's just you and the ref, and CJ was talking about what goes into, sometimes he looks around to see if anybody else is jumping up to shoot it, and if there isn't, then he gets up. And now, and in case you can fill in the blanks here about the fact that there's actually a team structure, or at least there's supposed to be, in terms of who on the court is supposed to step up and shoot the technical in the situations when those come up.
Yeah, as fans probably expect, it is supposed to be the guy who shoots the best percentage, who's on the court at that time. But sometimes, as you mentioned, CJ, who is a 78% free throw shooter, I think, which is good, but it's not to the level you would assume an otherwise great shooter, field goal shooter like CJ is. You would assume that would be a little bit higher, but it is supposed to be the guy who shoots the best percentage. But as CJ was saying today, he kind of looks around, and sometimes it seems like, well, maybe if the guy who does shoot the best percentage isn't really kind of feeling it, or if he's struggling, then CJ will just walk up there and take it himself. But unfortunately for CJ, he's been really bad at shooting technical free throws this year.
For some reason.
He's 1 of 7. So, which, to me, it kind of seems like that should be the choice of the guy shooting the free throw, whether or not he wants people to stand there now, or at least his teammates, because, it's supposed to be a benefit for the guy shooting. And if shooting with no one around kind of throws you off, they should give guys the option of being like, hey, if you want to have your teammates stand in the places they would usually stand on a regular free throw attempt, go ahead and do that. If you don't, that's fine too. But they should give them the option at least, because obviously with CJ, it's I'm guessing at this point it's probably more in his head than it is anything else. But definitely has been struggling with those. Blazers, I think, through the research today, shoot 60% on free throws for technicals, which again is well below their season average and super below their average of the past couple seasons, where they were the best free throw shooting team in the league. So it's one of those things, talking about story ideas and so on and so forth, that sometimes, especially when you get to the middle of the season and kind of you're maybe running a little low on good ideas, sometimes you just notice small things and you ask about those small things, and it turns out it's something the team has also been discussing as well. So it was a fun story to write. And I guess, maybe they should just try to see if they can get people to stand around CJ when he's shooting technical free throws. So it will probably be Damian for the most part. He is the best free throw shooter on the team, and he plays a ton of minutes. So he's typically out there when technical free throws are being taken. But sometimes it'll be Myers, and AC's even had one this year. So I think CJ is going to take himself out of the rotation for a little while, but I would imagine he'll be back there eventually, because he's a great shooter, and you would assume that eventually he's just going to start shooting free throws better.
Trust is often a big factor in terms of cooperation between media folks and also players and coaches. And I think we all would say that as members of the Trailblazers broadcast family, that we have a very nice inherent advantage of being able to travel with the team, to have the guys see us all the time, hopefully to get to know us to some extent. In your situation of needing cooperation to make the stories that you want to develop be as good as they possibly can, how helpful has it been to be traveling? It's something just to come up in the last couple of years, but to be able to travel with the team, to establish that kind of rapport and have them trust that you're going to have their best interest in mind when you put these stories together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Wheels. Being on the road, and even for the guys who don't travel with the team, but being out there consistently on the road is definitely helpful. And I think for the players, they realize that in some respects you're kind of in the same boat that they are. I mean, everyone wants to go home. No one really likes being out on the road for extended periods of time. So kind of seeing you as a person who's also out doing their job, I think it is helpful. And it's also helpful too because they run practices different. They run media availabilities different on the road. So you're able to sit down and talk with guys probably a little bit more than you actually would in Tualatin. And obviously, there's opportunities to sit down with guys and kind of talk about things that maybe you don't want to be on the record that would be on the record if there were, a bunch of TV stations and other journalists kind of over your shoulder, basically kind of listening to the conversation. So that's definitely helpful. But really more than anything, it's about, when it comes to trust with players, traveling and working for the team is great. But I mean, really, it's more about them having an understanding of what you do and a mutual respect for the job that the other person does, and being, kind of taking that responsibility and being smart with it. That's not to say that you can't write what you feel is the truth. And if that's going to be something that's going to be kind of negative towards the guy, it really helps to already have that relationship. So when you do write whatever that story is, you can go to that guy the next day and ask him what he thought about it. And if there were any things that he didn't like or that he would have changed. And I've had players call me and text me and say that, hey, I like this story a lot. And I've had guys say, hey, I didn't think that really kind of was the summation of what we were talking about. So it's gone both ways, but it's just, it's being there on a consistent basis. And those guys knowing that if they have a problem with something you've written, that they can go to you. And if they like something you write, that they can go to you and say, hey, I appreciate what you did, which, I mean, luckily for me happens a lot more often than guys coming to me and saying, hey, I didn't think you really did right by me in that situation. So that's a positive, and that's something that, that you have to build. And that's why, the first couple of seasons for a guy, it's tough because you don't have those relationships yet, and those take a while to build.
Case, before we let you go, tell everybody how they can follow you on Twitter, how they can get your stuff online, because it is always evolving. And the nice thing is, for those who miss out on an article or two, they're always right there to be able to follow. If they miss a particular day, they can still catch up with everything that you're writing, because normally you write faster than people can catch up with in terms of reading. But tell everybody how they can make sure that they're following everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. Obviously, you can go to forwardcenter.net. That is the home of almost all of my written pieces and quite a bit of video and so on and so forth. You can catch me on trailblazers.com as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Chold, Chold. You can follow me on Instagram as well if you're interested, particularly if you're interested in sneakers. That's the place to go. That's just at Casey Holdahl. And you should also download the Trailblazers app, which is a fantastic app. And I'm not just saying that because I work for the team and the people who developed it. It is incredibly useful. I use it every single day, multiple times a day. Particularly the schedule layout on that app is as good as you're going to find anywhere else in regards to kind of keeping track of the team. So that's another great place as well as the Trailblazers app. So and every now and then I guess on the radio /TV with you guys. So.
That's right. Well, thank you for the visit tonight. Enjoy the evening, and we will see you out at Moda Center tomorrow. And make sure you have your bags packed for another road trip starting on Thursday.
I just wrote my list for my packing for this trip, so
very nice.
What I'm doing next.
All right, Case. Thanks again.
Take care, guys.